All right, welcome in. We're the Real Selection Committee, and we had a great weekend. Just finished up week 11. Some big games, some major moves from some schools and some losing schools that we lost. How did you think the weekend went?
I thought it was one of the best so far. I mean, we're getting pretty far into the year. Some teams are starting to sputter out a little bit. There's a few teams that we didn't even think would have a chance and snuck in there. A couple teams we left for dead coming back in. I think one of the favorites everybody thinks is going to get in a little bit of deep water now as well. So let's just see what happens from here.
Right. Yeah, so we did have some big wins and major losses, knocked a lot of teams out of contention. Let's start with these teams that had some big losses here. You know, Miami and Georgia. I mean, where are they going to fall in this committee's ranking here? That's a big thing there.
Well, you know, Miami's probably going to stay around the 12 spot as far as the playoffs go because they still look like the team that's going to get at least in that ACC championship game. Mm-hmm. Now, Georgia, hey, we know they're still one of the best teams in the country, but the problem for them is they have fallen into that SEC grinder.
Right.
And who knows how that's going to end up. We know there's 3 teams in the SEC with 1 loss.
Right.
Georgia isn't one of them.
Right.
So,
yeah, they're running out of mulligans.
Yeah.
You know, Georgia's getting himself in some trouble here with these losses here.
And let's keep in mind, not to cut you off, but let's keep in mind they also lost to Alabama, and that game may play huge.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's the one big win teams that I wanted to talk about was Alabama. They're jumping up. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're going to cement themselves in, back high into that 12-team thing.
Yep.
Also, I was kind of impressed with Penn State's win over Washington. Washington's a scrappy team, and they handled them pretty good. So, that was a big win for me.
And they look like they got a little juice put in them. They were a little upset with that loss to Ohio State. They come out against a pesky Washington team, which, Washington's capable of beating you. Penn State just ate them up. I mean, beat them bad, and hey, Penn State knows they're going to have to do stuff like that to get in because we got all those SEC teams clumping up. So, I mean, that was a real good win for Penn State, too. You're definitely right on that.
Yeah, so let's just quickly jump into these college football playoff rankings. I'm going to just say last week, and then we'll go who we came up with, who I picked and Greg picked. So let's go with last week. Oregon was 1, Ohio State's 2, Georgia was 3, Miami 4, Texas 5, Penn State 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, BYU 9, Notre Dame 10, Alabama 11, Boise State 12. That's where the cutoff line was. So let's go talk about, like we said, we had some losses in there. So what did you come up with what we think this committee is going to have going into this week here?
Well, what I have for the 12-team tournament is Oregon still holding number 1.
Yeah.
I have put Texas in as my number 2. And although Tennessee technically is ahead of them, it's only because of wins. They have 1 extra game in the SEC. But Texas, I feel, will be that champion. They would be the 2 seed. Brigham Young's holding at the 3 spot. SMU, I got as the 4 spot because they are now the clear-cut leader in the ACC after Miami's debacle. Ohio State is my number 5. Tennessee's my number 6. We have number 7 is Notre Dame. I have Indiana at number 8. I have Boise State at 9. I have Penn State at 10. Still have Alabama sitting right there at that number 11 spot. And rounding it out, I have Miami and Florida in the 12 spot. I still think even with that loss, they're likely to get into the ACC championship game. And I feel they'll win.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, could that loss put them in a tailspin?
Right.
We just have to see.
Okay, so that's what I want to ask you. Now, going in, we selected before this, and we put teams based on where we thought they were going to earn their seats into this playoff tournament. Were you shocked at how the panel picked them? Because they basically went pretty much off the AP poll where they ranked teams where they felt that they were the best seeded teams and not how their playoff format was really set up for yet.
Well, I think that's how we can rank them here in the next couple of weeks, going further ahead. I hate to say it, I did not see their rankings for the playoffs. I seen the AP poll that we had last week. So I really don't know what they ranked them. But, I think this is kind of getting to the point where it is legitimately where they should be. And we'll see. I mean, I think you can't start putting them in, oh, this is how they rank, because you got the seedings, which do matter.
So for me, I was a little shocked because I thought they would stick with that structure. That's kind of how we based ours on. We went with the top 4 teams based on where they were going to be seated in this bracket. But as you saw and I saw, that they didn't go that way. They just went with kind of a strength of schedule rankings. So with that being said, that's kind of how I came up with my new this week's poll, what I think they're going to stick with. So my number 1, without a doubt, it's Oregon. Number 2, Ohio State looked good. Hey, this defense has come alive. The last 3 weeks, they have really performed, shut out teams, and they could rely on that defense. For me, I was a little scared of their defense coming in. The beginning of the season, they kind of got a little lazy with some of those early, easy games. Now they're tightening it up. I mean, so they had a big win over Purdue. They shut them out. I got Texas as my 3rd team because, man, they're looking good. Their only fumble was against Georgia. They got beat up by Georgia. But other than that, they're running over teams. So I have them as the 3rd team. My number 4 is going to be Penn State because, like I said, I was impressed with them beating up on Washington. I know they're not very good, but they're a scrappy team. My 5 is going to be Tennessee. They're the second best team in the SEC, the way I'm looking at it. So I'm going to put them at 5. Number 6, Indiana. Man, this team keeps winning. We're waiting for that big showdown 2 weeks from now when they play Ohio State. That game will be worth all the marbles, is like we used to say, but that's going to be a big, impactful game in the Big Ten. BYU jumped up. They're now 7. I know they kind of struggled against Utah. They had a last-second win, field goal to win that game. But I have them at 7. They're still undefeated. I think they deserve to be pretty high into the rankings. My 8's going to be Notre Dame. They're still looking good, and they're probably one of the better teams right now, the way they're playing. 9, this team right here could have a lot to say in this playoff. Alabama. Man, they looked good. They've had 2 losses. The Vanderbilt wasn't very good, but, hey. And then my number 10 is going to be Miami. That's where I put Miami. I think they fell all the way down. They were 4 all the way down to number 9. That's the best spot I could see them fitting them in because I couldn't put them above Alabama. I think Alabama would beat them if they played tomorrow. So they're my 10th. Boise State's now 11. I still like this team, and, they're the Power 5 that's going to get one of those bids. So I got to put them at 11. 12 is going to be Georgia. Georgia dropped all the way down to 11 because this is their second loss. Got to put them down there, and they can't be ahead of Alabama because they lost to Alabama. So I got them at 12. That's where that cutoff is. So let's talk about some of these teams that you got in the hunt or on the bubble. What do you feel that is sneaky picks getting in there?
Well, Clemson's still in the hunt. Of course, they got to win out and hope Miami kind of fails again. You got Colorado. Colorado we've kind of made fun of them a little bit. We all said they couldn't beat the real teams. Well, they're sitting right there. Right now, they look like they're going to be in the Big 12 championship game. So Colorado's in there. Ole Miss. Yeah. I got Ole Miss in the hunt. I got Georgia in the hunt. Army's undefeated still. Boise State slips up. Army might take that group of 5 spot.
Yeah.
So there's probably your best chance it isn't really being considered right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got other teams still in the striking distance. You got 3 teams in the Big 12, Iowa State, Arizona State, and Kansas State. A lot's going to depend. So they kind of play each other down the stretch. So
Right.
we'll see there.
Yeah.
And as far as the group of 5 go, if Army were to lose and Boise State were to dump another game, you could keep your eye on Louisiana. Go ahead and laugh, but they've only lost 1 game. They've been playing well. And Tulane. Tulane's a team with name recognition that could win that American Athletic Conference over an Army or, so we'll see. But that's how I see it. I mean, I think it's going to be fun.
Oh, it's going to be great. So my teams that are kind of looking in, that are right on the edge, if one of these teams slip up, obviously SMU is a big team. They're might make it into that ACC championship game. They're right on the edge. Texas A&M and Ole Miss. That game against Georgia had a big statement for Ole Miss getting back into the mix. Also in, like you said, Colorado, they control their own destiny. If they win out, they're pretty much guaranteed into the championship game. So that's another team to look out for. Army, like you said, they're undefeated. If they win out and one of these Boise or one of these teams slip up, they could sneak into that, which would be fun. It would be nice to see Alabama or Army into the playoffs. That would be fun. Bubble teams, obviously, and this one should be pretty much considered an in team, would be Clemson, like you spoke about, Tulane, Iowa State, and Kansas. They're on an elimination game when they play each other down the road. So one of those teams is going to have a big boost and have something to say with that Big 12 title, and the other loser is definitely out. Iowa's stumbling. They lost the last 2 games, so Iowa State, I would think, is in trouble.
They're in big trouble.
Yeah, they're in big trouble. Washington State's a team that mentioned, but I don't think they're going to have any prayer unless they get inside that top 12 of making it in.
Yeah, I had them as one of them teams hanging out there, but the problem is they're probably going to go 11-1, but they really don't have a real good win. And their one loss, they were beaten by Boise State 24-45.
Right.
So, I mean, that's really going to hurt you. But, 11-1, still 11-1. And the way we've seen the season play out, who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we came up with. Tuesday night, they're going to come out with the second week. And, hey, this is going to be the greatest season, I think, in college football. So much fun with this new playoff format.
Right.
So let's just quickly jump into these games. We'll talk about a couple quick games. Games of worth. The biggest game for me was Ole Miss and Georgia. This has changed the whole rankings for all these teams. Ole Miss, they beat them 28-10, and they pretty much led this whole game. They pretty much beat them up.
Well, Ole Miss is a team that earlier in the season hadn't played anybody, and I was kind of questioning them. Then they kind of beat LSU, and you're starting to say, here they go. Then they lost next week. Once they got into the SEC schedule, they were win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And the part of the schedule with this game against Georgia was the uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, the uh-oh was for Georgia.
Yeah.
Because Ole Miss come out and they beat them up.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do?
That was a big game. That Jackson Dart, I mean, he's leading this Ole Miss team. I'd kind of get him back high into the Heisman conversation. So that was a big game. Second game for me was seeing Miami go down to Georgia Tech, 28-23. Wow. I did not anticipate this. I didn't think Miami was going to lose to Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech is a thorn in everybody's side.
You ask any Miami or Florida fan about Georgia Tech, and they get a lump in their throat. That has been a team that over the years has caused them misery. And Georgia Tech's one of those teams. They just hang out there. We've talked about spoiler-type teams. ACC has a bunch of them. Georgia Tech's one of them. If you don't play good football against Georgia Tech, they're going to beat you. So, unfortunately, Miami played that game of, we're going to scramble at the end of the game, come back and win. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Miami's defense has been suspect
Yes.
for most of this year,
Yeah.
letting teams hang around, and it finally bit him in the butt
Yeah.
that they got beat. Because they've had to come back on a couple games. With that Cam Ward is amazing.
Yes,
This might have hurt a little bit of his Heisman candidacy here, getting beat in this game. I mean, he still had big numbers. Threw for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, but you can't lose games and get considered for that. But yeah, this game is a big loss for Miami, I think.
Yeah.
Another game I want to talk, Texas. Texas played Florida. Now, we were kind of concerned because Florida hung around and played a pretty good game against Georgia the week before that. And, we were scared about this point spread. But, geez, Texas went in there and just whooped their butts. 49-17. So
Texas did in that game what I thought they were going to do against Georgia 3 or 4 weeks ago. Florida's been playing good football.
Yeah.
They've been playing, hanging in with some of the other big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at that, and they were giving up
20 and a half.
20 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, Texas come in there, and they showed they were ready to play ball. And, I think they're back to being the best team in the SEC right now.
Yeah. I mean, Quinn Ewers had a heck of a day. He had 330 yards, 5 touchdowns. So that was a big statement game for Texas, because that put them right, like you said. I think they're probably one of the best teams in the SEC. So the other game I want to talk about, we kind of were scared a little bit about this Michigan traveling to Indiana game here. And Michigan hung into this game. It was right at the edge here that they could have come back and won this game. So the score was 20-15. Indiana won this game. And that, like we thought, even though Michigan's having a down year, they're still one of the big dogs in the Big Ten. And you better bring your A game to beat this team.
Well, for Indiana, they're still that team that Indiana has not beaten very often.
Yes.
Especially recently. So we talked about, could Indiana, if they faced adversity, beat that team?
Yes.
We saw them do it against Michigan State, the little brother. Well, they come in there against Michigan, and Michigan is a little down. But they're still a good football team, and them boys are going to come, and they're going to play football. And Indiana pulled it out. So, we've seen Indiana doing it now.
Yeah, that's a big step. I mean, that's one of those hurdles to get to where you want to be in the Big Ten. So, yes. The other game I want to talk about is BYU and Utah. Jeez. I mean, I stayed up and watched this game, and BYU got lucky on a pass interference call to the last drive of the game to go down and set up for a field goal, kick it, and win 22-21. Had it not been for this pass interference call, I think Utah would have won this game, and that would have changed the whole Big 12 up there with that loss there.
Well, obviously I didn't watch the game, but I was keeping track of it on my phone. I was watching the Penn State game. I saw it was 21-10 at halftime, Utah. And here again, I went to sleep, and I thought, well, Brigham Young is going to be another team that went down. Utah stalled out in the middle of the water and waited for him to come back, and they might have got some lucky calls or lucky breaks, but that's football. Utah could have put that game away by scoring again. They didn't. So,
right. Yeah, the BYU's defense held up and kept them with a chance to win that game, and so rightfully so, they did come back and win the game.
Right.
So the last game I want to talk about what happened this last weekend was, I think, the biggest boost for a team, Alabama versus LSU. Alabama just stomped them 42-13.
Yeah.
I thought LSU was pretty good in the SEC. They were looking like one of the heads in the league, and now they are pretty much out of the playoff hunt.
LSU, they're hanging on by a thread, but Alabama pretty much sealed their fate, because Alabama, I don't think, is going to lose.
Yeah.
And as long as Alabama don't lose, LSU really has no shot. Bama, my goodness, 2-3 weeks back, we were talking about, these guys can't play a full game. Well, they put a couple of really good ones together here, and they're looking like they could be a real thorn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they're playing like a top 3 team in the country.
Yeah, this is trouble for all the other 12 teams in the playoff. If they start putting this complete game together, Alabama is one of the best teams.
Yeah.
So,
Scary.
with that quarterback, Jalen Milroe, I mean, this guy's amazing. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns in this game, and I think that pushed him back in the Heisman race here. So with him being out there on that team, they're always in the games. And, I mean, with that Alabama, wow, that was a big win because we were worried about if they lost that, they were count them out, they're done.
They would have been done.
Yeah. So that was a big statement game. One more game I quickly want to talk about because I think they might have something to say coming down the stretch in the Big 12. Colorado versus Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Old Prime Time's getting his team in the mix here. If they win out, they have a legitimate shot of being in that Big 12 tournament championship game.
Who would have thought it? A few weeks back, we were talking Kansas State beat Colorado, and we thought, Colorado can't beat the big teams, good teams, right? Well, Colorado now is leading a pack of them and 3 other teams. If Colorado wins out, it's over. It's BYU versus Colorado. And what a story. I mean, no one thought Colorado would do anything, including us.
Right.
I figured maybe they'd go 6-6. They're right in the thick of it. And you know what? I wouldn't put it past them to upset BYU, and then they get in.
Right.
And Brigham Young would be outside.
So, yeah. Last week was great. That was fun. So now we're going to go into week 12. We're going to do our picks, who we got. So let's just quickly tell. Last week, Will, who was on our show last week, went 6-0. Picked all 6 games right. What a great job he did. I went 5-1, and Greg went 4-2. We've been having pretty good success on picking these games there. We've been having a lot of fun picking these games, and maybe it'll help you guys out if you're looking around for some info on that. All right, so first game we want to talk about, Kansas State versus Arizona State. Arizona State's traveling to Kansas State, and Kansas State's giving them 6.5. Yeah. So where do you see this game? This is a Big 12.
Arizona State's team we have not talked about, and they are 7-2. Okay, they are one of the 5 teams still left in the argument of Big 12. I think Arizona State's a good team. I think Kansas State will beat Arizona State, but I will say this, 6.5, I'm going to take Kansas State to cover as well. But Arizona State's going to play a large factor in this because they play Brigham Young as well. Yeah,
like you just hit the nail on the head, is they got a lot of factor into this Big 12, shaping this Big 12 up. So they control some of their destiny is sneaking into there. So with this game, I'm going to go with Kansas State. I think they're a little bit better team. Plus, they're at home. Yeah. I'm going to say they're going to cover this game as well. They're going to win by at least 7 points. So that's going to make the cover there. So that's what we got.
Yeah.
The second game we want to talk about here is Cincinnati's traveling to Iowa State. Now, Iowa State has lost the last 2 games, and they were spinning out of control here in this, making it into these playoffs here in that ACC. I think they're in trouble.
Yeah.
But Iowa State is favored by 8.5, so they're giving Cincinnati 8.5 points.
Well, here's the thing with this game. Iowa State is heading the wrong way on the highway right now.
Yeah.
They look like they got off the wrong exit and forgot which way they were going altogether. Cincinnati's been kind of okay this year. I'm taking Cincinnati to cover the 8.5. I think Iowa State's hit that done.
I agree with you. That's a good pick. I'm going to take Cincinnati as well. I think they're going to win this game. Yeah. I think Iowa State, like you said, are going the wrong way. Yeah. So I think they're in trouble in this game here. Cincinnati is a good team. They're going to have something to say. So, all right, our next game we're going to talk about is Utah travels to Colorado. And here, Colorado's favored by 10.5 points.
A little Big 12 heavy, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good things going on in the Big 12 right now. I'm taking Colorado to beat Utah. I think Utah, they gave their last shot against BYU. It didn't work. I think they are done. Colorado's going to win, I think, by 2 touchdowns.
All right, that's a good pick. Yeah, this is an important game for Colorado. They need to, like you said, win out to make it into that championship game there. But I'm going with Utah. I watched that game, and Utah coming into the season, even Will hit this, saying that they were supposed to win this conference. I think they're still a good team. I'm going to pick Utah to cover. I think Colorado wins, but I don't think they cover that 10.5 points.
We'll see.
So that's where I got that game.
Yep.
Another game we're going to talk about, Virginia plays Notre Dame. Notre Dame spotting Virginia 20.5 points. This is a big spread here.
Yeah. Notre Dame's definitely that much better than Virginia, but Virginia just put up a pretty good effort this past weekend.
Yeah.
I think they defeated Pittsburgh, if memory serves correct.
Yes.
So, well, I'm taking Notre Dame to cover. I think Notre Dame beats them, by 21 or more.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I think I'm really on to this Notre Dame train here. I think they're going to cover this. That's a lot of points to give, and Virginia is a scrappy team, like you said. They just beat Pittsburgh, who we kind of thought Pittsburgh had a shot at maybe playing in this ACC championship game. But I'm going to stick with Notre Dame and winning this game, and they're going to cover. I think they win by that 21 mark. They're just barely going to cover, but that's still a win.
Yeah.
So the next to last game we want to talk about is another ACC. Clemson plays Pitt. Clemson's traveling to Pitt's 10.5.
Boy. Clemson needs the win. If they win, they have a legitimate shot at nailing down that second spot. Because we don't know what Miami's going to do. We don't know how that loss affected them. Pittsburgh, I think we can kind of say they're out of it, but I think Pittsburgh's going to cover. I just think, Clemson to me, they're not flashy. Nothing they do looks great. I'm taking Pitt.
All right. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Clemson because this is a must-win game. They're gonna win by more than 10.5. This is a game that they need to do to get into this ACC championship, and I think Pitt, they've lost what, 2 in a row now?
2 in a row.
2 in a row. So they're going, like you said, the wrong road, down the wrong way here. So I'm going to go with Clemson. Last game we're going to talk about is probably the biggest game of the week. Tennessee's traveling to Georgia, and Georgia right now is favored by 10.5 points. Do you think that is a good spot or not?
Here's what I'm going to say. It looks ridiculous.
Yes.
Georgia coming off of a beat down to Ole Miss, and like we say, Ole Miss is kind of up, this, down. Georgia's going to beat them by 2 touchdowns. I think Tennessee's a good football team. I really do. Something about that spot worries me. It looks ridiculous. I'm taking Georgia by 2 touchdowns. Georgia knows they got to win or they're out. Mm-hmm. They'll be out if they don't win this game, folks.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, that's interesting. I'm going to pick Tennessee. I think they're going to hang in this game, and they're gonna cover this here. I don't see Georgia beating them by 2 touchdowns. I think Tennessee's got a pretty good offense here, and I'm really worried about Georgia's defense keeping Tennessee from moving the ball and staying in this game. I think they're going to let Tennessee hang around, and I think Tennessee is going to hang around in this game. I really like Tennessee to cover in this game, so that's my pick.
Hey, could very well. Tennessee's a good football team, and I guess as much as I want to see Georgia lose, I just think they're going to cover, and we'll see what happens.
You're right. I mean, this is a do or die game for Georgia. If they lose this game, you can pretty much write them off.
I'm gonna tell you what I want to see, because we're just about done. Let's stick in the SEC here for a minute. We got 3 one-loss teams. Texas A&M being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
We know Texas A&M plays Texas. What happens? Tennessee loses this game to Georgia. Texas A&M upsets Texas at the end of the year. Texas A&M ends up the one-loss team in the SEC. They'd be the top dog. And all them other teams have 2 losses in the SEC. Come up with who's getting in now.
That is going to be complete chaos
Oh.
in the SEC. And when that happens, we are going to come up with who we think should be into that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. To me, I think Alabama is probably the best 2-loss team.
They probably are, but what does that conference see? The thing we got to understand
how they're going to come.
We don't know what their tiebreakers are.
Right.
So, I mean, you got all them teams. Tiebreakers they might go with the ranking system.
Yeah.
Because there's so many of them.
Right. Yeah. And that conference is so stacked. Yeah.
You know.
Right. Well, that's it for this show. Thanks for watching. Hey, like and subscribe. Please hit that button. I mean, if you're watching us, you can at least do us a solid and hit that button, like and subscribe to us. Every week we come out here, we try to do the best we can for you guys to enjoy it. We love college football. This is a great season.
Hey, you know, it's interesting stuff. We got a great season going on. I know there's a lot of great college football fans out there. We're giving you 2 more opinions to go along with yours. Maybe it helps you in some way. Maybe you hear something you want to hear about your team. We'll just have to wait and see on that. But give us a like and subscribe.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hear some comments. Tell us what you think, who you like, anything out there. We'll get it back to you, and we'll talk about it here on the show. So thanks for watching. Peace.